Hello, before this episode begins, I'd like to address Sargon of Akkad's fans directly, if I may. You spotted the title of this video, you thought this might be critical about my hero, so you've come along here to hate watch every single second of it. Well, welcome along for a start, but secondly, please consider this a trigger warning. Now, I know you guys have mocked trigger warnings for many years now, but Sargon fans tend to flag down videos and get them removed from YouTube if they are mean to Mr. Akkad, or prove him wrong, or simply show that he's a dick using his own words. Now, to save you from getting upset, just simply stop listening/watching right now. Do not be like this person who recently found a video I made which is 2 years old from summer 2017, and he recently left the following comment on my video showing just how upset he was, or if you prefer, triggered. All I did was point out some of Carl's old tweets from his old Twitter account, literally showed the tweets and took the piss out of them, and he left this comment. "You are a pathetic piece of shit. Let's see how hard it will be to get you banned and deplatformed." That's both, which it's the same thing, but it's both, right? "It's going to be fun," he says. Now, this person is one of the hundreds of thousands of typical people who are always online screeching that free speech is important and no one should have it taken away from them, and then in the next breath they threaten to remove my free speech because I took the piss out of their hero. The same type of people who will listen to a female MP say something they don't like and then spend about 2 or 3 years harassing her and essentially trying to silence her while saying their freedom of speech to harass someone is important. Sargon fans will never ever understand the hypocrisy behind their actions, but I will try and get you to stop watching now, because there's no need to be this angry all the time, Sargon fans. You're gonna give yourself an ulcer one of these days. Now, if this video/podcast is flagged down and removed from YouTube, then if you're a fan of this channel, please by all means download a copy yourself and then upload it to your own channel if this does get removed. You know, I never thought that I would ever give Carl Benjamin any praise whatsoever or thank him in any way whatsoever. It's so tempting to give him a massive pat on the back because the last month has been so funny, so hilarious, watching a grown man, almost 40-year-old man, completely destroying his career and UKIP at the same time. 2 birds with 1 stone. It's very rare that the left, or the quote-unquote SJWs, ever get to see this much entertainment from the right destroying themselves. I mean, they're very good at it, but Carl really takes the crown here. This is such a monumental fuck-up by him. Going away from YouTube into public life, and it all goes wrong immediately. It's so funny. And it could get worse and worse and worse for him. Later on, I'll be explaining about how Carl's going to have a person joining him for the last bit of the campaigning session. He's clearly given up, and it's going to get worse and worse. And if you think about it, the media haven't even touched upon anything Anita Sarkeesian related yet. As soon as they work out that he's been horrible to more than one woman online, and it's a series of women, oh boy, it's just going to get even funnier. But let's start with UKIP. What a shit show it is over there. The party has been derided for years for leaning a little bit too far to the right, for the anti-immigrant rhetoric coming out of it, for all the endless lies that Nigel Farage told and is still telling regarding Brexit and immigrants and whatnot. It really needed a makeover. So leader Gerard Batten decided to get our favourite YouTube and Twitter gobshites to have one look at the current dumpster fire, and they all concluded that it needs more flames. This video is not going to address all of Sargon's controversial comments. In a way, the UK press is already doing that, and anyone on Twitter is already doing that as well. This video will be 5 hours long if I had to sift through all of his offensive or ridiculous statements. But before I begin analysing exactly why and how he's killed UKIP, I need to mention one incident, and it's the most prominent subject matter of UKIP's campaign so far. It's Sargon's comments about Labour MP and real-life woman Jess Phillips, who he took a dislike to in 2016 when he spotted her laughing at someone who was raising men's issues. And that was it. That was all it took for him to, I'm not going to say act like a snowflake. That would be too funny. But he certainly got very angry, and the harassment began then. Phillips mentioned that being in the public eye means she often receives threats, including those of a sexual nature, to which Sargon replied in his now infamous words, "I wouldn't even rape you." To those new to the world of Sargon, he is a troll. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and good night. No, there's actually more to it than that. He is a troll. That should be how you dismiss every single thing he does, but let's go further. Let's investigate that. He has many troll fans, and because he made his Jess Phillips statement public, thousands of his edgy fanboys decided that they agreed with him, and they let her know in great detail for many years on end exactly why they wouldn't sexually assault her. Now, here is some footage from 14 months ago. It's a very short clip from an hour-long interview with Jess Phillips talking to Richard Herring on his Rahela podcast. Here she is discussing the harassment from Sargon fans, followed by a short reading from her book, By Me. And a link to the full hour interview will be below in the description box.
I don't want to have to be frightened. And mostly I'm not, to be honest. Just sometimes it does dawn on you that you are a target.
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, because of the world, you get a lot of abuse on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because, some people don't like anyone saying anything they don't agree with, or a woman voicing.
People don't like women to speak up. Yeah. That's definitely true. So I get absolutely shed loads, although I actually can't see it now. And so, I mean, to all the people who might be listening to this who defend me, stop it, because all I see is your defence, because I obviously have an algorithm on Twitter that doesn't allow me to see really any of the abuse anymore. Right. But when people are being like, "You leave her alone, she's one of us," I'm like that. What have they said? I don't know what these people have said. But there was a time when I was first elected, before I had sort of kicked off at Twitter, where it was constant, like thousands of messages every hour, just that you're going to be killed, stuff about my kids being hung, stuff about me being raped in all different ways, or how I was not suitable for a raping, which apparently is better. That's a low bar as well. So yeah, I get an awful lot of that. But the worst stuff, actually, that you get, the most dangerous stuff, is the stuff that is just like, it's the shut up stuff. It's trying to silence you all the time, so that when you go to say something, you think twice about it, and that is dangerous.
Yeah.
For all that I can be chippy about the trolls and can certainly put up a fight, the internet makes me feel as if I'm wading through treacle. Every time I speak out about anything feminist, I'm shot down by people calling me fat, common or stupid. I receive abuse all day, every day, especially on Twitter. Mostly I am tough and it doesn't bother me a bit. I'll be on the train with my work done and I'll turn on my phone and think, right, I've got half an hour, amuse me. But the truth is, it's been getting much worse. Unfortunately, the sexist element of the trolling that I receive plays on all the insecurities I've always had about myself. They call me goofy or say my teeth are stained, which they are. Trolls call women fat. Mine like to obsess about my boob size and my ugly face. They will tell young women who live their lives on the internet that they are stupid and common and ugly and dirty, all things that young women are telling themselves every day, and that is why it's so dangerous. Then she mentions very briefly, without saying his name, Sargon of Akkad. In my head, the most frequent aggressor was some American figurehead. Turned out he's just a bloke from Swindon whose job seemed to entirely consist of being on the internet. Imagine that every internet troll is a bloke from Swindon who can't get a job, and you'll soon realise your own superiority.
You had a guy the Conservative guy arguing that International Men's Day should have a debate in Parliament as International Women's Day does.
Yes.
Which you were slightly dismissive of.
Well, I was mainly dismissive of the fact that he actually said to me, on a committee where I was the only woman out of 9 men just don't have enough opportunity to speak up in Parliament. So I laughed at that. And I said that I felt like, to me, in Parliament, every day was International Men's Day. Yeah. But, of course, I think that we should talk about things like male suicide and prostate cancer and testicular cancer. The thing is that's what... Men's activists aren't interested in talking about any of those things. They're just interested in slagging off women. Yeah. It's like if at Women's Aid, we didn't like open refuges. We just sat around and just went, they're buggers, aren't they? What can we take off them?
Well, the truth is, as well, if you're in, and that's what you get, that's what I get a lot now.
Yeah.
Is, do you not care about male suicide? I go, yeah, I do care about male suicide. I've done lots of gigs for Calm, and, it's an important subject. But if you conflate it into this thing, which is men complaining about there being an International Women's Day, you're actually devaluing all of those very good points about men.
Absolutely.
And a day for equality is a day for everyone anyway.
Yeah.
So if you're having a day where everyone's equal, that includes the guys. So that includes...
Yeah, just get on board.
But, feminism... It's, people have a problem with the word feminism having feminine, I guess, but it's insanely, because obviously... Well, as you say, it's not having a White History Month or having saying, well, you've done all this stuff about slaves, but when are we going to hear about the slave owners and have a day for that? And... HIV Awareness Day. I haven't got AIDS. When will there be a day for me? And it's the same, it is the same
exactly
thing.
the same. And it often happens when you talk about women's aid. People are like, oh, well, where's men's aid? I'm like that. Well, tell you what, get a squat, put a mattress on the floor, have jumble cells for the entirety of the 80s, which was how we funded the women's movement, and then maybe we'll take you seriously. Set up your own refuge. Get on with it, mate.
Yeah.
Don't just be moaning at me because I did something good. And you wouldn't ring up. What I always say to people is, oh, well, it's not fair that a man can't stay in this refuge. It's like ringing up the Cats Protection League and saying, I've got this dog. Well, I suggest you open a dog shelter. Go and sort yourselves out.
Yeah.
You've got shitloads of capital. Use it. Not you, sorry, I'm not shouting at you.
No, it's okay. I feel partly culpable through having a penis.
You are.
Yeah, I am. I definitely am. I've done so much.
Now, I have been arguing with Sargon fans for quite some time due to the comments I was talking about at the start of this video. People have been wading in quite regularly, saying, oh, she's just complaining about nothing. She should expect some abuse if she laughs at men's issues. And, it completely disregards the comments that she made in the video clip, which these people have seen before commenting. Yes, she did laugh at men's issues, and the person who raised those issues, she explained why in the clip. That's been ignored by everybody who leaves a comment, and will leave a comment to this video as well. But the one thing that is ignored again and again and again is the exact different types of abuse that she receives, including her children being targeted. That is always ignored and followed up with, well, she should be able to take it, she's a public figure, or, well, it's her fault for laughing, or simply, I wouldn't even rape her either. This is why engagement with these people is completely pointless, because they follow a troll. Everything they do and say indicates they hate women. They will tell you to your face that they don't, and then call someone a bitch for the rest of time. So it's, But with all those things in mind, we've got to remember that the viewpoint from the trolls and Sargon fans is that it was a joke to say that he wouldn't rape her. A joke that only his fans seem to get, but a joke nonetheless. It's not his fault that we are so easily offended, is it? It's our fault. We should stop being so easily offended by a teeny tiny little joke. Why are we so easily offended? I just don't get it. But the thing is, Jess Phillips laughing is because she finds a subject or a joke funny, right? That's how that works, right? But you, Carl and Carl's fans, didn't find it funny, correct? You found what she was laughing at to be in bad taste. Is that right? Maybe it's wrong for her to laugh about that particular subject matter. Am I right? Yeah? Something only a giant bitch would do, isn't it? Laughing about men's issues like that. Correct? What that means is that Sargon of Akkad and all of his fans are offended by jokes. And that is quite ironic if you look at what their arguments are for harassing her. To be fair, Carl did come out in a Sky News interview and say that if a woman is being a giant bitch and laughing about male suicide, I'm going to be a giant dick back to her. I mean, it's an excuse. There always is one with trolls. Imagine justifying an abhorrent tweet to a female MP and the subsequent dogpiling her by saying, well, she's a massive bitch, maybe she deserves it. It's a noble excuse, Carl, that surely would stand up in any court, which you may find out in the future, because police are investigating it as we speak. By the way, Carl's fans tweeting Jess Phillips and telling her exactly why they wouldn't sexually attack her. A lot of the times it's based on the fact that she is quote-unquote ugly, and doesn't really give them a boner, and so on. I think this might be the first ever instance of a bunch of far-right people judging someone else by the way they look. Never happened before in the past, has it? But another reason why UKIP is dying at Carl's feet is because he refuses to apologise for his comments, even though he's largely in favour of apologies, as this tweet proves. This is a tweet from Sargon from Christmas time 2016. Dear people who make jokes, apologising for bad jokes is what people do. If you don't, you're an asshole. He's largely in favour of apologies, just as long as it's not him that has to make the apology, it seems. Okay, let's hear someone else's thoughts about the Jess Phillips saga. Here is comedian Tiernan Dueb. I'm sure I said his name wrong. Sorry about that if I have. He's got a podcast called The Partly Political Broadcast. Links to that will be below. And here's a quick 45-second look at UKIP and Carl Benjamin from him.
Also, Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, a man who looks like the reanimated corpse of Jeremy Beadle and is largely known for telling Labour MP and mouth with hair Jess Phillips that he wouldn't even rape her, something he defended as being a joke. UKIP leader and love child of Mrs Brown and a fairground waltzer, Gerard Batten, also defended it as satire. No. A, the whole sentence insinuates that Carl Benjamin would happily sexually assault someone else. B, it's steeped in misogyny that he assumes his aggressive rejection is an insult. When you look at the haunted John Virgo that he is, it's definitely not. And C, if it's a joke, why is there no obvious punchline? And why at no point did he tell it like he was joking, instead of just sort of shouting it like a child who's upset but doesn't know how to cry for help any other way?
Can I just say, it's a very, very British reference he made in that clip. But to see Carl Benjamin and say he looks like a haunted John Virgo is just genius. So good. Next up, we have to understand exactly how UKIP got themselves into this mess. So here is another short clip with a little bit of history, especially from last year when the various people got together to destroy UKIP. The video is called The Funniest Conservative and Far-Right Self-Owns of 2018. And you may be surprised to learn that the whole UKIP saga only made it to number 2 in my chart. Remarkable, really, when you think about what's happened since. But again, links to the full video are below in the description box. A group of far-right people joining a dead far-right party to own the libs? Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad. Now, if you don't know who he is, I'm envious of you. He's one of the people like Dave Rubin who claims for a long period of time to be a liberal, to be left-wing, but really we all knew he was a conservative. In Carl's case, he proves that with a mini own of his own by showing a picture of him cutting up his Conservative Party member card, right, which he definitely would have if you're a liberal, right? And then showing off his UKIP card. Now, UKIP, if you don't know, is a far-right party which is, fair to say, in the doldrums of late. Nigel Farage, who you probably do know, left the party after Brexit was announced, after the vote. And since then, there has literally been no point to the party called the United Kingdom Independence Party. They've got exactly what they wanted, and now their existence is pointless. But in order to get attention and possibly to own the libs somehow, a group of far-right people, Count Dankula, the guy who taught his dog to do a Nazi salute, Paul Joseph Watson, conspiracy theorist and former friend of Alex Jones, and Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, all decided to join UKIP on a whim. I've officially joined UKIP and plan to take it over in a soft coup which would lead to the total restoration of freedom in the United Kingdom. It's all about going against your political beliefs because some people called you a far-right person or a Nazi, and to prove them wrong, you go and join UKIP. Inevitably, people like me will talk about it and take the piss out of them, and they don't care if it's embarrassing because they literally have no shame. As long as this generates views for them on YouTube, gets them a Twitter following, and ideally makes them some money, they're thinking, who gives a shit? A man called Neil Hamilton, who is a ridiculous figure in the UK. He's ridiculed all the time, or at least he was when he was famous. He's kind of faded into obscurity for the last decade. And if I was a cutting-edge internet personality, I get an old man who most people have forgotten about to welcome me to a political party that most people have forgotten about. I'm certain that will trigger the libs, because it simply has to. I'm all out of other ideas. And of course, Neil Hamilton wrote a tweet saying, I'd like to welcome Paul Joseph Watson, Sargon and Count Dankula and Milo Yeah, we forgot about the fact that he's a part of UKIP, but he's so toxic that we've not seen him in any promotional videos, materials, posters, anything. It seems that they may have brushed that one under the carpet because no one wants to associate him with him anymore. Prove me wrong, guys, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I look forward to them developing truly dank memes that will trigger lefty lovies like Gary Lineker and James O'Brien and their politically correct establishment chums. And proof, if any is needed, that these people have joined a political party to just troll some people. Another own happened when this poster/promotional material was released for the brand new UKIP with the slogan, "The Party of British Values," and 3 of the most miserable looking cunts you've ever seen in your life. Having a face like a slapped arse to own the libs? Okay. The current leader of UKIP has recently employed Tommy Robinson. Gerard Batten, when asked if the party was becoming tainted with Islamophobia, said the following thing: "Islamophobia is a made-up word. I don't have an irrational fear of Islam, nor does Tommy Robinson." 2 points. Number 1, he clearly does. That's his entire grift. His entire grift is to make others scared of Islam. And number 2, you said Islamophobia is a made-up word. I've got news for you, mate. All words are made up. Oh, God. I would be very interested to know where they go next. How lame can this go? That is the question that I want answered. Why are they doing this? What is the true motivation behind the bunch of internet trolls joining a political party? Why has UKIP leader Gerard Batten allowed these toxic individuals into his party? It literally makes no sense. You're trying to get away from appearing as a far-right party. The reason why Nigel Farage left is because Nigel fucking Farage reckons UKIP is too far-right. Wow, what a statement right there. You desperately want to get away from that criticism, so you employ Paul Joseph Watson and Sargon of Akkad amongst others. What? UKIP is the Titanic and it's sinking fast, but the iceberg they've hit is in the shape of the UKIP leader. So if you think about it, it's more of a Battenberg. Thank you, guys. Make no mistake, UKIP will not recover from this at all, nor will Sargon. They are both going to be destroyed completely, 100%. There is no saving grace from any of this. So on the surface, it makes no sense. No sense at all. But if you do a little bit of research, a little bit of hypothesis here and there, maybe the odd conspiracy theory, and you can come up with a semi-plausible reason why they are doing this to themselves and to UKIP. And reason number 1 is publicity. At the end of the day, Sargon is a grifter. All he cares about is money, and he generates that with the hate speech that he pumps out. So has this worked out for him as an individual? Well, clearly the indication I've already given you is no, not in any way whatsoever. It really may be the end of his career. First of all, let's look at his monthly views on average. And you can see a large spike recently. He's almost hitting 10 million views for April, up from an average of 5 million in February. And the lowest, which was 2.6 million in November of last year. The rise after November looks good on the surface there. That's pretty much when they started campaigning for UKIP, when that all began. But the real spike has been in the last couple of months, and that is when the media have started learning more about him and his name has got out there. And I believe that this spike in views is simply curiosity. And why do I think that? Well, let's look at the next chart, which is total subs added per month for Sargon. And you can see over the course of several years, the numbers have been slowly declining per month, with a short spike here in December of 2018, 23.2 thousand subs added, followed by a dip after the UKIP announcement was made. So it's already going badly before he's even on the campaign trail, with a slight rise after that of 24,000 people joining his channel in April 2019. Now, for someone with so many views over the course of the last couple of months, you would have thought the monthly sub count would be much higher, and it simply isn't. It's pretty straightforward. Traffic to Sargon's channel is up because people are investigating and checking out themselves. They're curious to what kind of shit he's saying. They're visiting and they're not sticking around. It's as simple as that. This whole experiment has been completely pointless in regards of YouTube for Sargon of Akkad, but it gets better than that. This is from the horse's mouth himself. May the 9th, 2019. YouTube let us know that they have demonetized my YouTube channel, which, as you know, is my primary source of income and how I support my family and team. I've always taken care to comply with YouTube's rules, yada yada yada. He basically goes on to blame the left in a way, or his enemies, for flagging down his videos, even though traditionally that's not what they do. That's traditionally what his fans do. So, you know, projection and so forth. We are still aware that he has other channels, and we are assuming at this point that they're still monetized and he'll use them more to generate income. But what normally happens is when you Tommy Robinsons and Milo Nonce-a-Lot kids get in the public eye, and a lot of backlash happens because of the horrible things they're saying, the horrible things they're doing. That's pretty much the bottom line for YouTube. They will let you say whatever you want and be horrible to whoever you want, and not only allow your channel on YouTube, but it will allow it to be monetized. The fact that Sargon has his channel monetized until May the 9th, 2019 is an absolute miracle when you consider everything he's done. It shows you how biased YouTube are towards bigger creators, because they will just let him carry on until very recently, when it's just unfeasible to let him carry on in the way he's going, if he's now become such a public hate figure simply because of his own words. And like I say, it happens again and again. Tommy Robinson's no longer on YouTube. Milo is essentially broke because no one will touch him with a barge pole, and all of that Mercer funding has dried up. Surprise, surprise. And it happens every single time. So theoretically, one can imagine that other channels that he has on YouTube will be demonetized over a fairly short period of time, and very possibly the channels themselves will be removed. Which goes to show you, no matter how many times you complain to YouTube or tweet at them or just let people know how bad these people like Sargon are, YouTube will not give a shit until it's bad for their public image on a wider scale. If it's just people on Twitter complaining about YouTube allowing all this anti-feminist, anti-trans, racist sort of content from these arseholes, they don't give a shit. It's not loud enough, but as soon as it becomes public, they do something about it. It's as simple as that. Now, if you still need convincing about this process, look at Patreon as another example. Like YouTube, they eventually, after a lot of pressure, kick people off their platform. And Lauren Southern is a great example of this. She tried to stop refugee ships from coming into a country, and you can argue whether she did or did not use flares to stop those ships. The point is, she tried somehow to stop those ships. And turns out normal people think that's a bit of a cuntish thing to do. So off she goes, you know. Can't really argue with that, unless of course you are far right or a fan of hers, and then you'll argue until probably today. Look in the comment section if you dare. But another example is Carl saying the N-word on YouTube, and Patreon, after everything they've seen over all the years, decided finally that was enough. You know, it only took about half a decade for them to finally pull their finger out and grow some bollocks, but there you go. And of course, Dave Rubin and Professor Jordan Peterson, apparently two very clever people in a institution which they label themselves as intellectual, dark web. Yeah, if you have to label it yourself as intellectual, good chance you might be as thick as shit. But still, let's go with it for now. These intellectuals, they've decided to, in solidarity with Sargon, not be on Patreon anymore, and they're going to set up their own crowdfunding website type thing. I mean, they have said that about a year ago, and they've done fuck all since. But they said they're going to do it, and I'm sure these clever people are going to get around to it eventually. However, like YouTube and like Patreon, other forms of getting pocket money from kids for your YouTube channel are often shut down as well. Things like PayPal and all the other different things. When the larger public learns that you're a prominent far-right figure or a racist or a horrible person, or, you know, harass MPs or whatever, there's a very good chance you won't get any income from any of these people. Hence why I believe that Sargon's career as an individual, a YouTuber, and so on is over, as well as clearly his very short political career too. Also, please remember that demonetization is not the same as deplatforming. For some reason, YouTube will take away your money if you're being an arsehole, but they'll allow you a platform to still spout the same bullshit to a massive audience. Makes no sense to me, but it's still not censorship. Now, I don't want to disappoint people watching now and laughing at the downfall of Sargon, but there might be a little bit of good news in there for him, the little silver lining for Carl, which is the fact that at the end of the day they are all still grifters, and what grifters do very well is convince very, very stupid people that their free speech is being taken away, or that the mainstream media doesn't understand them, and it will attack them with smears and so forth. And that's why Carl has a little phrase that he's using at the moment called dirty smear merchants. Now, he's doing that partly because he doesn't have any arguments, partly because he doesn't want to apologise for all of his words, but also because he knows that him saying what is essentially fake news, it's all fake news, to his mouth-breathing fans is enough to convince them that it is. It is slightly ironic with that people like Paul Joseph Watson will say the words fake news whilst at one point in his life working for InfoWars, but the fans of these people just don't understand those ironies, or they're not clever enough to spot it, basically. Or they don't care, simply. Just like Trump fans, everything that is fake news to him is simply just criticism or accurate reporting, or literally quoting his own words back at him. I never said that, was fake news, you made it up. And anybody who's ever been on YouTube or Twitter in the last few years who's looked at a grifter knows the only way to grift is by being the victim all the fucking time. If you don't spend every minute of every day saying the left are trying to attack you in some way, or feminists are trying to take you this, that and the other, or the mainstream media is lying about me by quoting my exact words back at my face, then you don't have a grift. It just won't work without being the victim, okay? So the only benefit they have at the very precise moment in time is they can all play the victim. But again, how long will that last for if every other revenue source and if every other platform is taken away from them, or they are so toxic that no one wants to touch them in a Milo style way? Only time will tell. Carl's ideas were simply too powerful and too edgy for the public to handle, rather than poorly thought out trolling techniques that are called out by the media, because that's how politics and journalism works. If you're a bit of a prick and you want to run for office in any shape or form, you're going to be picked up about being a prick in the past. How long can he continue pretending to be a victim? Most anti-SJW channels are no more. They simply have stopped producing content because it seems that 5 years of a million channels saying SJWs are bad a million times a day in a million videos can get a bit tedious after a while. But somehow Sargon is the exception to the rule, one of the very few anyway, who's managed to continue the tedium of producing the same content day after day. But surely Sargon will run out of steam eventually. The glorious irony is that Milo has been deplatformed and essentially it's become unemployable by his own people. Remember that he made comments that stopped the Mercers funding him. He was not allowed on the CPAC stage after all the allegations about him came out. He's never had a job since then on a conservative or far-right platform, except for that really short period of time that he was on InfoWars, where he was forced to sell the fucking soy tablets to the fucking idiots, the customers, the fan base, that's it. He can't even sell his goods on eBay anymore. No one bought the throne. It was the right that took away Milo's platform, not the bloody SJWs who want to censor everyone and everything that they disagree with. No, it was conservatives that did it. He bit the hand that fed him, although he did it unintentionally. And the ultimate indignity of that is he can't even travel to places like Australia, the second most racist country in the world, won't let Milo in, you know? It's so silly. And he's coming back. If you haven't heard the news yet, Sargon, the last roll of the dice, is not to apologise or just stop talking. It's to make things get even worse by inviting Milo along for the remainder of the campaign trail. Oh, that is not going to work, is it? Alright, so I just need to cut in at this point and say that I've recorded some audio yesterday, less than 24 hours ago, about how Milo would not be allowed into the country and things that might happen on the campaign trail if he was allowed in the country. And less than 24 hours later, he's with Sargon of Akkad somewhere in Britain spouting bullshit, and someone's already thrown a milkshake at Carl, and there's a video on the BBC website of a scuffle that's happening after the milkshake. They're trying to get the perpetrator, and it's one of the funniest fights ever. There's one ginger bloke, I believe, on the floor, maybe the bad guy here, and about 4 or 5 grown men just sort of wiggling him around a bit, like he's sort of just being a worm on the floor, and they just can't grab hold of him. And it's just comical in many ways. It's a little bit like an MMA fight, like an ultimate fight, but everyone is fully clothed and not in shape in any way whatsoever. And the reason why I've kept in the Milo bit that you're going to hear in just a second is because it's relevant to other YouTubers and other bigots as well. It's happened to them and it will happen to them in the future. And then, of course, I go on to describe things that might happen on the campaign trail. So that's why I'm interjecting now. Anyway, back to the original audio. Bye. So my theory is this. Milo gets invited back to the country and he gets stopped. He's stopped from entering the country on the basis that he spreads hate speech. So now this is good for Sargon, Milo, Dankula and whatnot, because they can pretend that their free speech is being infringed rather than it's literally a government decision. You know, it's not the left have done this and that. Again, it's conservatives who are in power and they have the decision-making powers here, and conservatives have potentially decided that Milo is not allowed into the country. Now, this is just a theory. This might not happen at all. But if he is allowed into the country, Milo will say something deliberately stupid or offensive or could potentially cause someone harm, hate speech essentially, and he will be stopped from saying this, or he will be arrested, or he will be bundled away somewhere, or people will shout at him, tell him not to do that. And again, this is where the far right can play the victim again and pretend their free speech is being removed. Now, a few of my lefty friends have suggested that Carl might try and take Gerard Batten's place as UKIP leader after the European elections and after Batten steps down, because he's forced to, because the party does so badly. But what you're forgetting there is the party does so badly that they wouldn't want someone who's made the party do badly become the leader, because that literally makes no sense. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice theory. I think it's not a bad suggestion to make, but if you look at it further, what that involves running a political party. It involves running a political party, day-to-day activities, not spending all your time sat in your basement taking a piss out of women online. It's completely different. You can't... There's no transferable job skills from YouTube to any aspect of political life. Carl is proving this. He'll have to actually put in effort to run a political party. He's not well known for being, you know, too proactive. He's quite a lazy Route 1 person, just like, arguably, all the anti-SJWs and every single bit of their content, as I've already mentioned. But still, nice theory, guys, nice theory. And finally, in this section, Carl is unable to now do what Tommy Robinson does. Tommy Robinson may still have a career in the near future compared to Carl, who won't, because Tommy is now an independent candidate for the elections. Even though he is technically employed by UKIP, he has done what Milo and Carl have done and bit the hand that fed him. Will he go back to UKIP? I don't know, or give a shit. But the thing is, Tommy's fans are generally a bit more rowdy, shall we say, than Carl's fans. Tommy's well known for having fans who used to be in the same organisation as him, the EDL. Football hooligans, thugs, racists. Generally, you get the idea of like a big, heavy-set, gammon-faced, heavily tattooed man with an England shirt on. That's kind of the stereotypical Tommy Robinson fan. And you may think, oh, that's a bit over the top, you're just making shit up off the top of your head. What about all the intimidation that happens? You know, he literally would not have the grift himself if he didn't have the opportunity for his fans to go out and scream at people in their faces or send them death threats. And then there's all the instances of physical violence being used in Tommy Robinson demonstrations on the street, whether someone has or hasn't already thrown a milkshake at Tommy's head. Fucking full on, really full on stuff. That's Tommy Robinson's grift. Carl's fans aren't quite the same as that, are they? We're picturing 15-year-old kids with MAGA hats on, even though they live in Lincolnshire, you know, running home at the end of school to listen to the latest Sargon of Akkad video. Which woman has annoyed him today? All of them is the answer, but they don't have the same get up and go as Tommy Robinson fans, probably because they are still at school. But, you know, there could be other factors. They might be really old boomers as well. They might have bad hips, or, you know, just have fallen asleep for the afternoon. This is just speculation, guys. We don't know the full reasons why his fans aren't like Tommy's fans. Carl's fans are literally one of the very few remaining sources of anti-SJW fans, and like I mentioned earlier, how much longevity is there in that particular market where everyone around him has already given up about a year ago? Again, only time will tell. Sargon had the opportunity to become an MEP, a member of the European Parliament, where you get approximately £100,000 a year for doing fuck all. He wouldn't even need to go to Brussels. Nigel Farage never did, in the several years that he was an MEP. Made an absolute fortune, did nothing apart from complain about migrants, and appear on Question Time every other week. But there's a conspiracy theory floating around that Gerard Batten employed these people to just be themselves, knowing they were so toxic, just to drive whatever remains of UKIP's support over to Nigel Farage's new party, the Brexit Party. However, that suggests some kind of intelligence from Gerard Batten and the trolls to come up with this plan, and I just don't think they've got enough brain cells between them. I genuinely think that they don't have enough brain cells. Sargon and all of us have witnessed an actual troll become president despite all the lying, despite the scandal, despite the ineptitude. A deeply unpleasant man who triggers the libs just by existing is now a leader of the free world. It's like a fever dream that will never fucking end. Carl has looked at this and thought, I could do that. He can't. Clearly he can't. By the way, as an aside, sometimes Trump is described as the Teflon Don after all the Russia stuff not sticking to him. Although I give this advice to journalists: if you label Trump as the Teflon Don, like you did with John Gotti, remember that John Gotti was eventually caught and ended up dying in jail. So please stop giving us hope, okay? Sargon thinks he's untouchable, like Trump does. He thinks he's electable too. However, there's one big difference between the UK and the USA, and that is America refuses to 100% hold Trump to account. Yes, the lamestream media and the fake news outlets such as NBC, CNN, New York Times, etc. are no fans of Trump, and they do criticise him quite a lot. But there are major organisations like Fox News and Breitbart who will never say anything bad about him and worship the ground he walks on. Along with Twitter bootlickers like Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, and anyone who claims to be a journalist and wears a woolly hat and has MAGA in their bio. They all praise him to the hilt, right? These people will bend over backwards to defend Trump, Roy Moore, Kavanaugh, Laura Ingraham, the NRA, and so on. This is because in right-wing American politics in 2019, cruelty is the key. Brown kids in cages is a good thing because it's brown kids in cages. Taking several days to denounce the Charlottesville Nazis was no surprise because that's his fan base that he has to criticise. Cruelty is the point, and there is funding behind this cruelty as well. Whereas in Britain, the conservative and far-right media are cruel and hate immigrants and all that kind of stuff, but they're not that cruel. There seems to be a line they won't cross. Even the most bigoted of British people and media outlets draw the line at Carl's adult rape and child rape comments. So unlike America, we're seeing publications that are right-leaning and far-right, like the Daily fucking Mail and the Daily Express. They're tearing Sargon, Dankula and UKIP a new arsehole. They're not standing for any of this. He's not getting the same support in this country that he would have got over in America. The scandals just don't seem to work for him over here. Trump can say, I grab him by the pussy. I just grab him by the pussy. They love it. They grab him. But Carl's thinking that his comments are very much like him saying, I'm the least rapiest person. No one's ever raped less than I have. He's thinking he's got that same patter that Trump will have regarding his horrible comments. He's got the same kind of skeletons in his closet, but it's not working for him. Trump is a misogynist, he's a sexist, he's a racist, he wants to fuck his own daughter, he's been accused of rape, he admits to sexually assaulting women, and he gets away with all of it. Whereas Carl has done one of all of those things, all of those bad things. He's got one thing in comparison, and he's nowhere near getting away with it. It's the complete opposite. Thank you very much for watching / listening. This has been Anti-Social Media. If you enjoyed this kind of shit, remember that you can download the episode and upload it onto your own YouTube channel if this gets removed by Sargon fans, which it most likely will. If you've enjoyed this look at why UKIP is dying and you think it's worth $1 or $2, you'll be right to think so, because YouTube doesn't monetize any of my videos anymore. So if you want to throw me $1 or $2 to say thanks for the video / podcast, then you can do in a number of ways. Of course, there's the Patreon and there's the PayPal as well, and you can buy me a coffee. Aside from that, do the usual thing, subscribe and like the video if you want, but do be aware that YouTube have got a really handy new thing which really does affect people with low amounts of subs like myself, and that is if you like a video in the past, it would automatically get shared to social media. Now that no longer happens. You have to go to the share function and share the video that way onto social media, but you can in that way write a little blurb above the video as well, such as "I enjoyed this, it didn't make me vomit blood, share to social media." And until next time, thanks for watching and laters, baters.